14-year-old Sophie loved her brother Ethan, but sometimes she thought he was the most annoying person in the world. Every morning he reminded her to take an umbrella, lock the door, and be careful on her way to school. Sophie never understood why he worried about her so much. It seemed like Ethan was always there. Whenever it rained, he appeared with an umbrella. Whenever Sophie was late, he waited for her. And whenever she felt scared, somehow, Ethan already knew. Sophie thought it was just annoying big brother behavior. One rainy evening, Sophie needed an old book from Ethan's room. While searching beneath his bed, her hand touched something unexpected. It was a small wooden box covered in dust. Sophie stared at it curiously. Why had Ethan hidden a box under his bed? Inside were dozens of handwritten notes. Sophie picked one up. It said, "Check Sophie's window before sleeping." Another said, "Make sure she gets home safely." Her hands began to tremble. These weren't ordinary notes. Ethan had been keeping track of every little thing that could keep her safe. Then Sophie found an old photograph. It showed her as a little girl, standing beside Ethan and their father. Sophie turned it over. Written on the back were 6 words that changed everything. "I promised Dad I would protect her." Suddenly, Sophie remembered the night their father passed away. She had been too young to understand what happened. But Ethan had remembered every moment. Their father had held his hand and asked him to take care of his little sister. Ethan had made a promise, and he had never forgotten it. Sophie rushed downstairs. Holding the photograph tightly, she asked, "Ethan, why have you been secretly protecting me?" Ethan became silent. His eyes filled with tears. Finally, he whispered, "Because Dad asked me to. And I promised him I would always take care of you." Ethan explained everything. The umbrella, the locked windows, the walks home, and the late-night checks were never about controlling Sophie. He was simply afraid something might happen to the little sister he had promised their father to protect. Sophie finally understood the love hidden behind every warning. Sophie stepped forward and hugged Ethan tightly. Through her tears, she whispered, "You don't have to protect me alone anymore." Ethan smiled. Sophie continued, "From now on, we protect each other." For the first time, Ethan felt that the promise he had carried for years no longer belonged only to him. The next morning, Ethan smiled and said, "Be careful." Sophie smiled back. This time she didn't roll her eyes. She simply replied, "I will." Because now she understood that sometimes the smallest words can carry the biggest love. And whenever Ethan said, "Be careful," Sophie knew what he really meant, "I love you."